What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy with Trading Decoded, and we're going to make this a quick one. I know I say that every day, but I really need to make this a quick one because nobody watches these videos for more than 12 minutes, even though they're packed full of good information that you could probably use. But hey, to each their own. Anyway, it's 4/12. It's July 18th, 2024. And what a B-E-A-UTIFUL day it was. Started out a little rough. But then she picked up some steam to the downside and many opportunities to make money. No doubt. But let's go ahead and launch the chart, stop screwing around, and see what we were looking at. Well, as you can see, we have an awful lot of lines on the chart. Originally, it started with 4 high and 4 low with our pre-market area here, which we quickly got out of. Now, I was all okay with playing calls today. Until one thing happened. At 9:25, we were in a zone where we were looking for a breach of 558.55 for calls to the upside, and we were looking for a breach of 558.27 for puts to the downside. Just like any other day. In the morning, leading up to the open, we were trending up, and the top 10 at the time was pretty damn green. In fact, everything was green leading into the open. So I was perfectly ready and prepared to play calls today. However, and the one thing that saved me, and this is one of my favorite trading rules, although it doesn't work 100% of the time, it works enough to keep you out of more bad trades than anything. Okay? We reached a point up here and we started to pull back. While we were pulling back, still okay with calls, but then 2 minutes before the market opened, 3 minutes before the market opened, we put in the one thing. If you've been watching my videos the last 2 days especially, we talk heavy about this. 2 things I want you guys to remember. Lower highs are bad for calls. Higher lows are bad for puts. Okay? Just remember those 2 things. You do not have to take trades based on this information, but if you can learn to spot them to keep you out of trades, it's important. For example, we were prepared up until right here, 9:26 this morning, to buy calls if we breached the call line. No. On the Qs in the morning, we also put in the same lower high. Does that mean that we're going to have a downtrending day? Absolutely not. It does not mean that at all. That was not the reasoning for not taking the calls. It's not a put bias. It's the fact that we started to trend down leading into the open. We came off of a lower high. And what I teach and what I trade is that when you're coming off of a lower high, whatever support you were planning on buying calls on is at risk of being broken because the pressure is getting stronger on that support because of the lower high. Does it mean it's guaranteed to break? Absolutely not. Does the odds significantly increase that this support is going to fail more so than hold? Yes. Yes, it does. All we're doing is playing probabilities, folks. Nobody can see the future. Watch how often this keeps you out of buying calls and saves you from losing trades. Just watch it yourself. You don't have to listen to me. The people in my community hear me talk about it all the time and they watch it save them from losing trades constantly. I'm not trying to save them. I'm trying to help you. For those of you who just watch my videos and are not in our live trading rooms and all that stuff. This one tidbit of information right here, yes, it may hold and it may rocket ship off sometimes and you're going to be pissed off that you didn't take it. And I knew Jimmy didn't know what he was talking about. It happens, and it is frustrating sometimes, but the number of times that this indicates that we are more likely to break support than hold it will keep you out of more bad trades then it will cause you to miss decent ones. I'm telling you. With that said, those calls went from a no-go. We're not looking for calls now. Why? Because we're going off of lower highs. I know, or I trade, that lower highs typically mean support's going to fail, not hold. For me, if I'm interested in puts, especially if we're near a point that I would want to take puts anyway, I am more likely to be aggressive on my entry because of the lower high. So I don't necessarily wait for the break of the line before I get in. I'm anticipating a break of the line. Could be completely wrong. I'm willing to take the risk because statistically speaking, it works more times than it doesn't. Easy. When we were going to play the put scenario, we were just looking for the next line down. Very simple. It's about a 30-cent move, even if you waited for a breach of the line and took it to the next line. 30 cents pays us decently. Gives you about a 15 to 18% return on your money in just a minute or two. Okay? Again, we weren't expecting today to be a downtrending day. We weren't expecting today to be an any day. You should never expect a day to be anything because then you create a bias for yourself. Trade the chart. Now, the other problem, when we were playing or considering the call scenario, the question naturally comes up. Why would you not play it here, which I just explained, but you would play it here? What did we just talk about? Several things have changed since we got back to this line. Several things have changed. Number one, we're coming off higher lows. Number two, we have broken that downtrend line. Number three, the Qs were coming off of support. Now, it doesn't mean the Qs were trading trends. So this is a counter trend trade if you're watching the Qs, but they still have a resistance that's more than 30 or 20 cents away. So this, I didn't expect this to be a strong move, and I didn't expect it to last long because of the Qs, but all the reasons to try it existed here. You were on support on the Qs. ADD was rocket shipping to the upside, by the way. This was going on ADD. Massive move to the upside. So you had the momentum of your small caps and all that stuff. But we had broken out of a wedge, if you want to call it that, or the downtrend or higher lows, whatever it is. Higher lows are bad for puts. So I'm not interested in puts at this line this time. And I had other reasons to believe that it could move up. Now, I didn't take this trade. I took this one. I didn't take this one. Okay? But I do have people who are still interested in puts. Guys, just wait. Okay? Until we breach this trend line, be patient. We're still in a pretty tight range. We don't know what the day is going to do yet. But at 942, 941, we broke the trend line. We closed below support, but that was the put line. We went straight down to the next support. And if you were wanting to hold because the Qs were still trending down, closing below supports, you could have taken it down to the next line. Okay, so at 945, the Qs were nearing their next line down as well. We are constantly referencing the Qs, constantly, because the Qs, as you will see a little bit later in this video, the Qs will stop SPY dead in its tracks. SPY will be nowhere near one of these lines sometimes, while Qs are dead smack on one of theirs, and SPY will stop right in its tracks. That's why we cannot ignore the Qs. So this was another quick scalping trade, 30-cent move here, and it turned into a much larger move there, about a 50-cent move if you held on. Again, still great trade opportunities. You're talking 15 to 25%, even 30% on these moves, guys. We're not looking for home runs. We're looking to get into trade setups that have higher probability chances of winning. So it requires patience and it requires moving parts to be aligned at the same time. Okay? We bounce off support. Why are there no up arrows here, Jimmy? You got higher lows, Jimmy. I agree. But you know what else I got? Qs trending down. I don't trade against the Qs. I don't trade against the Qs. Period. End of story. These white arrows are on the Qs because I'm trying to line them up with the SPY chart than we did take our trades. Okay. Now, this next trade that we're going to talk about this was an amazing trade. This is my second trade of the day. We happen to be talking about this trade at the very moment we took the trade, meaning we're putting in higher lows, higher highs. Okay. Being asked, Jimmy, what would you do here? I said, well, I wouldn't be buying calls because the Qs are going the wrong way. Okay, Qs are trending down today. I don't trade against the Qs. That's just me. If you like calls, take them. Just use support and resistance as your reasoning for doing it, right? Okay, well, when would you buy puts? I said, well, a couple of things. If you're being conservative, we were actually talking about the differences and the benefits of buying puts during a downtrend on pullbacks versus candle closes below support. There are several reasons that you should wait for pullbacks versus trying to buy the breakouts or close below supports. And they're important. Number one, if you're putting in lower highs and lower lows, that's a downtrend. You want to be looking at puts anyway, not calls. Number two, when you buy on a pullback, it feels uncomfortable because you're buying puts when SPY is moving up. It's uncomfortable. It takes getting used to. But the reason you should feel more comfortable trying it is not only because SPY is at resistance, Qs are coming off of lower highs near resistance. ADD, I think at this time had started to finally rotate to the downside. So momentum was shifting. But more importantly, you had Qs nearing resistance and SPY at resistance, both of which were creating lower highs. Okay, so at the very least, we were saying if you get in on a pullback, you get excellent fills on your pricing. You have a much tighter stop loss because we're waiting to see if this resistance holds. Not waiting, but if it doesn't, meaning we close above it, we stop out of the trade. But what we're really hoping for is the confluence of Qs and ADD being at resistance. Qs and SPY being at resistance and ADD at the time printing red candles. That momentum is shifting in our favor. We're taking a calculated risk. We're getting in at an opportune time with the ability to have a tight stop if we're wrong, knowing that we want to get down to the next support, which is where we just bounced off of. So the original trade plan was to get in at resistance, get out at support. But something very, very important happened as we were nearing our support down here at 1029. The Qs had just closed on a support as well with room to go down. ADD was printing red. Okay, lower highs on ADD. So momentum at this time wasn't nearly as good as it was just a couple minutes later, but still looked good to the downside. So we were holding on to this trade. Now, nobody expected this trade to do what it did next. Nobody. We got into the trade looking for a very clean, simple move from line A to line B. As we're nearing line B, we saw reasons to consider staying in the trade a little longer while having a stop loss in profit in case the support holds. Okay, so we've removed the risk of losing money on the trade, gained the confidence to give the opportunity to make more by having a stop loss in profit. Those are the best trades to be in, guys. Okay? What we were hoping for at this point is that the Qs are able to get a candle close or a breach of this support right here. Knowing that if at least that happened, we'd be looking for the move down to the next line. That's just going to pull SPY down a little bit lower. It did exactly that. SPY got to our call line here. We close below it. That lets us know that we're likely to get down to the next line. Well, that next line turned into two lines. We close below that support, so we automatically look for the next line, so on and so forth. Now, the reason that this circle is here is because at this time, ADD, Qs, and everything started to all move much, much quicker in the same direction. Momentum was now officially on our side, and it started a nice sell-off. I got out here because the Qs made it to the pink line. I don't like to mess with the pink line. Now, I left almost 200 additional % on the table because of that pink line. I'm not mad. I made 180% return on this trade. Okay. We had people in our group get well over 300% just because they held through the lines. We had a lot of people get out on the pink line on SPY. I exited here. We had some folks exit here. Guys, I don't care when you take your profits. I don't care if you want to hold longer, just as long as you protect some of your profits. But always have a reason in a plan as to where you're going to get out. Once we busted through these supports, nothing else mattered to me until we got to this pink line. Qs and ADD were still selling off aggressively. I mean, look at what ADD looked like today. Look at this. That's a lot of selling in the market. We got as high as positive 1,200 and as low as minus 1,800. That creates some tremendous amount of selling, okay, in the entire market. That's not a good time to be buying calls. So we got two where I exited, stayed below resistance. Every time we close below a line of support, you want that to become resistance. As long as it is, hang on. Stay in. Move your stop down. Okay? This thing ended up massively gaining a ton of profit. And the reason there's a circle all the way down there at 1044 is because on Qs, we had hit an extremely strong level of support. We were talking about this level long before we got it. I told everybody who was in that trade, I said, guys, if you're still holding on to your puts, the Qs are coming down to a very strong level of support from way back when. Lots of support there on Qs and on SPY. I told everybody it's going to be a very difficult level to get through. If you are going to hold through this, please, 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 please tighten up your stops. Even said, I am no longer in this trade. I told everybody when I was getting in, when getting out. But if I was still in this trade and we got down to this line, now we're having this conversation all the way up here, I would be taking myself out of the trade because of this level. Now, if you go back in time, I don't remember if it was Qs or SPY, but let's take a look. This line right here, it was SPY. I don't know if you guys trust support resistance as much as I do, but the idea that we were just going to breeze through this level right here didn't elude me. Meaning, if we managed to get through all of this support and made it down to here, I wasn't going to try and hold through that. Why not? Look at how many times we touched that. This is a 30-minute chart and failed to have a single candle close below it. And then look at what happened when we couldn't do that. Guys, I can't ignore this. This right here, the strength of the line is what was important. Not that it was just a line. This wasn't just a line with a double bottom on it on a 30-minute chart. This line has been tested a bunch of times and not worth messing with. So as we move down to that point on our 1-minute chart, it was down here, right here. This one right here. I said, guys, it's a very strong level. I would really consider taking yourself out. If you got in way up there, you should be up 3.5 to 400%. 350 to 400% that trade resulted in, and we called it at the top, okay? You don't let greed make you do something stupid. We had some people put a stop loss in place, which is good because it pulled back, stopped them out. Some people held and got caught up in this right here. Listen, it's not that you weren't still in profit, but you have given up so much extra profit at this point that you're so irritated that you will not get out of this trade until you're anywhere near where you once were. This is what happens. This is what happens to me, which is why I put mechanical stops in line, because if I allow myself to go through a pullback this big, I start to remember the fact that I had double the amount of money just a few minutes before and that I don't have anymore. That becomes irritating to me and it turns me into a hold and hoper. Now, in this case, if I turned into a hold and hoper, I would have been rewarded. I would have got my money back. But that is not a place that I typically do well in, so I try to keep myself out of that situation by using mechanical stops instead. Anyway, When would you buy calls or puts, Jimmy? We pulled back. We're clearly not moving up after this point. Qs were hitting resistance. SPY was hitting resistance, very heavy on ADD. I said, well, it's kind of an aggressive line, but at least wait for a break of the trend line, right? Let's see what the Qs are doing at 1106. 1106, Qs had just broken their uptrend, right? Okay, let's go. Downtrend resumes. Jump in at that point. So the Qs broke at 1105. SPY broke its support at 1106. Let's go. Where are we going, Jimmy? Let's try and get down to the same crazy solid support and see if we can get through it or to it. Either way, it's a beautiful move to the downside. Not even a single green candle to be had till we hit that line. Then you had a massive reaction. We tried to hold it with a doji green. Ultimately, the sellers won this fight and continued to move us down. We did have some people get in and hold through this. Good for them. We continued down, 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 down. Again, all of these levels, if they don't make sense because they're hitting SPY levels like this, it's because the Qs are hitting supports, okay? All of these exits here were either because SPY was making it to their next line down or Qs was making it to their next line down. Whatever the case, these are banger trades, guys. Now, we start to move up. Once again, we're talking about this trade. This was the last one we talked about before I went to lunch. Yeah, Jimmy, when would you buy puts again? Would you buy them up here? No. Why? Because we're sitting on a support level. We're sitting on support. Guys, there's no rush. Wait for a breach of this support. Wait for the Qs to not be on support. 1147. Qs were sitting on a support level as well. Wait for them to close below this. In fact, I said I would like to see the Qs below 477.65 before I would jump into puts again. Okay? Well, we got that close at 1147. That's here on SPY. We're taking it down to the Q's next support. Here. Okay? Simple. Now, when you get this deep down in the day, we had a $9 range today. When you get this deep down in the day, you got to start wondering at what point do buyers consider this a buying situation? When is the move going to slow down? When is the move going to stop? Nobody knows. And you should never be afraid to take puts because it can't go lower. But you've got to start considering the fact that we've had a big move to the downside that has clearly slowed down. It didn't stop, but it's slowing down. Okay. And you could see it a lot of times in ADD when you have little pullbacks like this and things of that nature, or pullbacks like this. Any pullbacks on ADD is just an indication that there's some money going back into the market. Well, that was the last trade we talked about. I ended up taking lunch right around 12:15, so not much happened between that trade and before I left. And then we started to chop up. I came back right around 115, 120, and we were putting in higher lows, higher highs. And then we were looking for a reason to get into puts again, because again, lower highs. We just need to clear support. We had a nice support level here. Below that, we had room. The next level of support, if you look left from here, is not this line. It's right there. Right there. Okay, not this line. Not this line. We've already taken out this support. We went right through it. The last time we stopped moving lower from this point here is this point. So if we can get through this support, we'd be looking for this support next. We cracked through that support, both on Qs and SPY. Qs just got through a support level here. Okay, let's go. Straight down to the next support. And then some. It tried to stop there, couldn't, continued down. Now, Jimmy, when would you buy puts again? If we missed all of these other opportunities, when should we buy puts? Guys, buy them on pullbacks. It's clearly a downtrending day. Just make sure that your pullbacks line up with Qs pulling back to resistance. Go for confluence. ADD is still trending down at this point. 224, Qs probably pulling back to resistance. Perfect. Or what is it here? Here, yeah, 224, Qs at resistance. Okay, let's go for it. Pullbacks in a downtrend. Down, down, down. Down we go. Another opportunity right here, 234. Qs pulling back to resistance, coming off of lower highs, lower lows. Does it hold? I don't know. Nobody can know. Are the odds in your favor? Sure. Yes, they are. Market says so. Resistance says so. Pullback in a downtrending day. Look at. Okay. So another opportunity to get in if you missed other ones. Let's see how far down it goes. Now, this late in the day, pullbacks hurt a lot. So I personally do not like to trade or recommend trades this late in the day. Okay. I had a member asking, well, Jimmy, we'll look at this move to the upside. I want to tell people this too, because this is important. Right before I left for lunch, I left explicit directions or instructions because people always want to know when I would change from calls or from puts to calls. Okay. So when I left for lunch, it was right in this area here, right around 12:15. I said, guys, you should be continuing to look for puts unless we start putting in higher lows. Well, shortly after I left, we start putting in higher lows. I wouldn't touch calls until Qs can close above 478.51. Okay, very important level of resistance. We tested it many times, couldn't close above it. But here we are. Once again, higher lows are bad for puts. Would you buy puts when we touch it, Jimmy? Maybe if we weren't coming off higher lows. Otherwise, I expect that to fail, not hold. And you could see it happen. Higher low, higher low, higher low, break of resistance, continues up. Okay, so if you were looking for a counter trend trade, I left you with instructions as to when I would consider making the switch. I was not here to dictate this. I said it before I left. There was hundreds of people in there hearing me say it. So if you took it, congratulations. Proud of you. If you didn't, also proud of you, because it would be hard to find a reason to play puts or calls on a day like today. I get it. But you just have to recognize that it was a strong level of resistance. And remember what happens. What makes it a strong level of resistance first is enough people are shorting the market at that line. If the buyers can breach the line, everybody short at that position is underwater. They're upside down in their trades. In order for you to close a short, you have to buy your position to close. Buying pushes the market up. Okay, so not only do you have buyers helping the move go up, you've now turned a whole bunch of shorts into buyers to help the same cause. Okay, and if you look, we never got back down to that line once we got above it for almost 2 hours. And it still tried to hold the support. But we were coming off lower highs and lower lows, so we expect this thing to continue down. C'est la vie. Anyway, congrats to anybody who played calls using the Qs as a reasoning for doing so. It happened at 12:31. Again, I wasn't in the market at the time or on the mic at the time, but at 12:31, if you would have got in on SPY at 12:31, yes, you're coming up to a resistance on SPY, but I specifically said, and again, you might not believe me if you're not in the room, but for the people in the room, you heard me say it. I wouldn't worry about what SPY is doing. If the Qs get above that line, I'd be interested in calls. Okay? And the reason I say I wouldn't worry about what SPY was doing is because it was very clear today that the Qs were controlling SPY. So if the Qs are breaking resistance, the SPY levels of resistance aren't going to matter as much. Qs will drag them through it. Okay? Might not be the cleanest of moves, but at 12:31, we started to move up, continuing with higher highs and higher lows. You had a nice move to the upside here. Nice move to the upside, depending on how long you stayed in. Okay? So that's pretty much it, guys. It's still 30 minutes. God, man, I'm such a failure at life in drawing support resistance lines. I'm sorry. Guys, if you make it through these videos, I'm seriously trying to give you everything I got as far as information goes. And I'm telling you that if you just use or even consider some of these things that I'm telling you in these videos, I promise you it's going to help you make better trading decisions. I promise. You don't have to trade the way I trade. And I don't care what kind of strategy you're trading, support resistance, crossovers, EMAs, SMAs, RSI, whatever the hell else is out there. Price action is king. And if you can learn to use it, it can help you and save you from mistakes. Okay. With that, I hope you got some useful information in this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to join our Discord community, well, we'd love to have you. There's a link down below. Come see us. And yeah, tomorrow we got a live charting session at 8:30 Eastern for my members. You'll be in there. I'll see you. And that's pretty much it. So enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you make good money. Till tomorrow. Love you guys. See ya.